lockdown on its citizens. Gavin Lee reports from Brussels.
In Brussels this morning, long queues outside a supermarket just before the new restrictions to public life began. The food stores aren't closing, but the fear and panic is causing its own phenomenon. The Flemish have a word for it here: hamstering, people storing in excess of what's needed during the pandemic.
De farine. Il n'y a plus de farine.
I can't find flour. I've been looking for some for 2 weeks. It's gone. I'm worried I won't have pasta anymore, to not have anything left. But I'm good for toilet paper.
2 weeks ago, there was no sign that coronavirus had spread here. Now there are more than 1,400 cases. 14 people have died. Belgium's Prime Minister said there was no other option but to take the next step.
The Belgian National Security Council has decided to take more severe measures. Civilians are obliged to stay home in order to avoid as much contact as possible outside of their close family, except to go to work, for essential journeys, to go to the doctor, to go to the grocery store, to the post office, bank, to the pharmacy, to get petrol, or to help people in need.
Across the EU, a growing number of countries such as Poland are deploying soldiers on their borders, only allowing their own residents inside. Last night, after Hungary closed its border with Austria, hundreds of Romanians and Bulgarians working elsewhere in Europe became stuck on their route home. Hungary later allowed a so-called humanitarian corridor to let them through. The fight against coronavirus has turned Europe's cities into ghost towns. In Belgium, authorities say they will be enforcing this confinement. Gavin Lee, BBC News, Brussels.
Well, elsewhere in Europe, the Italian authorities say they may need to extend the country's lockdown if the number of new cases of coronavirus does not slow. The government's ordered restaurants, bars and most shops to shut until next week, and schools and universities are closed until April. But since the measures were introduced, the number of new cases has doubled. Spain recorded more than 2,500 new cases yesterday. That's an increase of nearly a fifth. More than 550 people have died. In Madrid, some 800 people have been fined for breaking strict rules put into place to restrict movement. The French army has transferred some patients in critical condition to a military facility to try to ease the strain on hospitals in the east of the country. The decision to move patients to military hospitals came as doctors in several eastern cities warn that their health systems are at breaking point. Well, in Scotland, the First Minister Nicola Sturgeon says there could be a blanket school closure in the coming days, and the Scottish Government's launched a new helpline aimed at providing businesses with advice and guidance. Let's get the latest from our Scotland correspondent Lorna Gordon, who's in Glasgow. Lorna.
Ben, within the last few moments, Scotland's First Minister Nicola Sturgeon has been speaking. She has said that it is her view that the schools in Scotland will close at the end of the week, that school and nursery closures here are now inevitable. She also said that people should not assume that schools and nurseries will reopen after the Easter break. She said she cannot promise that they will reopen before the summer holidays. Earlier, she was speaking about why it's so important that these measures are introduced.
The measures that we are asking the public to follow in the days and weeks to come are absolutely designed to reduce the numbers that get ill, that get seriously ill and die. So we can all have an impact on those numbers. We can't stop this virus, we can't make it go away completely. We are heading into a very difficult period, but each and every one of us, by following the advice that's been given, can reduce the risk of getting infected ourselves, and certainly reduce the risk, if we do get infected, of passing that on to other people.
Well, she made those comments when she was out announcing increased funding for an Age Scotland helpline. Ms Sturgeon described that helpline as an emergency service for the coming months, providing, I suppose, if you like, support and a chance to chat for those who are having, the elderly people are having to take heed of that advice to socially distance themselves as this virus takes hold. But again, within the last few moments, Nicola Sturgeon announcing that it is her view that schools here in Scotland will close at the end of the week.
All right, Lorna, many thanks. Lorna Gordon there in Glasgow. Well, there is concern about misleading information on how to treat coronavirus, which has been circulating on the internet. I Our correspondent Chris Morris is here with me now. Quite a lot of confusion about what is being said online.
Yeah, it's about paracetamol and ibuprofen. And the medical advice now is clear. As a first choice, take paracetamol to treat the symptoms of coronavirus, high fever and so forth. But really important caveat, if you're already on ibuprofen to deal with other reasons, other conditions, don't stop taking it without talking to your doctor. The thing about ibuprofen, it's an anti-inflammatory drug, and there are those for whom it can have unfortunate side effects, people with heart disease or asthma, for example. The problem is we don't really know how COVID-19 reacts to ibuprofen. So I think we're going now for a safety first regime, if you like. The NHS advice has changed. It did say until a couple of days ago, take either paracetamol or ibuprofen. It's now saying concentrate on paracetamol. And that advice was summed up this morning on BBC Breakfast by Professor Callum Semple from the University of Liverpool.
The story around ibuprofen has actually got very weak evidence, and although we're taking a cautious approach, it's very hard to find any hard evidence that ibuprofen is causing harm. So if people are already on it, and for good reasons, they should carry on taking it. If it's a new thing for you and you're unwell, then perhaps avoid it.
And Chris, concerned too about some fake news circulating about this crisis.
Yeah, and we're going to have lots of good news stories about people going above and beyond to help friends and neighbours in the next few months. But there are hoaxers and scamsters out there. And over the last few days, there have been plenty of stories on the internet about ibuprofen, stories purporting to be from a hospital in Cork in Ireland, from the University of Vienna, from a hospital in Toulouse in southern France. The Vienna story, for example, apparently saying the disease spread more quickly in Italy because people were taking ibuprofen. They're all false. So if in doubt, go to places you can trust, the NHS website, media you can trust. And it's obvious but worth repeating, don't automatically believe everything you read on social media.
Good advice. Okay, Chris, thank you very much indeed. Chris Morris. Well, the restrictions introduced on Monday are having an impact on everyday lives across the UK as many work from home and avoid social contact. Tim Muffet has been speaking to people in London to find out how they are coping.